Hi guys, one traveler here today in Mexico. Mark's not going to be in the picture today, but I'll do my best to carry on without him. Today I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of freedom in Mexico. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of things about Mexico, different from the US. And I'm going to talk about, I think, 4 different things. One of them is traffic in Mexico, driving in Mexico. I know we've talked about driving before in Mexico, but a couple of things that I don't know if you guys are aware of. Some of you that might be driving here, some of you that might be moving here with your car. So I'm going to talk about them. One of them is that, like in the US, Mexico has the yellow curbs, which basically means no parking, or maybe parking for like a minute or two. I don't know. But here in Mexico, that is not the case. Many people park there all the time. I mean, if there's a yellow curb on both sides, they park on both sides also, which narrows it down for only one car to get through now rather than 2 lanes, because there's parking on both sides on the yellow.
Here we are pulling onto a street that is supposed to be 2 lanes, but as you can see, the cars on the left are parking against the yellow curb, and they go into the restaurants and spend an hour or 2 hours there. But then it narrows the street down to 1 lane instead of 2.
Law enforcement, not so much, I'd say. So people do it because they get away with it and don't really think too much about it. Double parking, you'll see that a lot by the schools, rather than finding a place to park, because parking is pretty hard to do in Mexico. They'll just double park and wait to pick up their kids. And it can go on like for a whole block or around a block. So that's just something that you got to get used to. Know to get in the far lane, not in the right lane where the school's going to be, or if it's on the left side. But yeah, that's another issue, is the double parking here. The double parking goes on for a while, not just, like I said, running in to get your kids. It's usually they're waiting for their kids to get out of school. So it could be, 15 minutes to 20, 25 minutes, and they don't go anywhere. I mean, they're just all backed up, parked there, waiting. Another thing is the stop signs and red blinking lights. Those are just a suggestion to stop. Everybody that I see always blows through them. And I'm one of them because I live in Mexico and I'm turning Mexican. And if you don't, you're going to get the car behind you beeping at you because you stopped. So I don't know. It's just the way. I mean, they've got the signs, they've got the red blinking lights, but nobody abides by them. So, yeah. And another thing that I've noticed too is, like on the highways, if it tells you, like, I don't know, whatever the speed limit is, like, what is it, 80 kilometers? Is that it? Kilometers? I don't know. I always get those two confused because the United States never wanted to go to the metric system. But you'll be going the speed limit, and it'll be like, let's say 60. Okay, so you're going 60. Well, there's other cars that are going 80. There's other cars that are going 90. There's other cars that are even going faster than that. I think that they're late for a drag race or something. I don't know.
Meanwhile, the guy behind you at the stop sign.
But yeah, they seem to go pretty fast, and I really have never seen anybody get pulled over. So I think that's at your discretion if you want to speed. Have I done it? Yes, I have. Because it just doesn't seem like, I don't know, that speed limit is fast enough. And I get it. I mean, I think that's why the other cars do it too. It just doesn't seem to be fast enough. And then you get those real slow popes that are on the side of the road. You know, they kind of pull off on the shoulder of the road so that everybody else can pass them. So those are some things that are different from the U.S. The U.S., you can get ticketed for just about anything, especially when it's quota time at the end of the month. The other freedom that I wanted to talk about in Mexico versus the U.S. is that you don't have to have health insurance if you choose not to. It's totally up to you. I know when Mark and I first moved here, we did buy into the IMSS insurance, and we had it for 2 years, and as you get older it starts to go up. We never used it during those 2 years, so we decided to go ahead and not renew it again. IMSS is like the government insurance for workers and stuff like that, but you do have the right to go ahead and buy into it. So here it is a free choice on buying it or not buying it, or getting private insurance. That's another way to go with your health insurance. Mark and I ended up buying private health insurance, which didn't do anything. In fact, I talked about how I had fallen like a year ago, had to go to emergency. I thought I broke a bone in the bottom of my foot, and they still haven't paid me today. So yeah, that's pretty much a lost cause. So they say that they'll pay you. Everything's been submitted twice, but still no money. You know, but that's the thing too. You know, you can either buy into the private insurance, like I said, you can do the IMSS and buy into that. I hear controversy things on the IMSS, but you know, it's probably cheaper than the private insurance. Mark and I were paying about $2,200. Sorry, I got an itch on my foot. Mark and I were paying about $2,200 each for the private insurance. And that's all it was emergency purposes. And I had an emergency purpose and it didn't pay at all. So there you go. Another thing is that you can get the free insurance here in Mexico, which is INSABI. It's free to everybody that doesn't have any, you know, insurance. And the thing is with that one, I hear different things about it. I hear that, you know, like blankets aren't provided. A lot of things aren't provided, maybe sheets, blankets, food. But then again, I was talking to a friend of mine that is a doctor, and he said that the food is included. So I don't know. And he said that sometimes blankets are included. Sometimes is the key word. So I guess it's a choice thing, you know, whatever you want to do. There's people that also just kind of wing it. If there's an emergency situation, then they'll just pay out of pocket for whatever's going on. I know we did a video with our subscriber and friend, Kenny, who ended up breaking his back here and having to have back surgery. And I think the whole thing was close to about, I want to say 5,500 plus, maybe 5,500, $6,000. But that was the surgery, the medication, the days in the hospital, you know, his meals, everything. So not bad, really, when you think about it. I mean, I don't know what your copay would be in the United States. You know, maybe you would have a very high copay, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you wouldn't have anything in a situation like that. But that's another option that you could do too, on just winging it. I know a lot of people that do. Okay, number 3 is freedom of noise in Mexico. That's a big one. Yep, there's a lot of freedom of noise here. Parties usually don't start until about 11, and they usually don't finish until 4, 5, 6 in the morning, depending on what kind of party. Some parties could go on for 2 days. So there are no ordinances like there are in the U.S. on noise. In the U.S., if you had a barking dog, like is the situation here in Mexico all the time, you would have law enforcement come out, give you a citation or give you a warning or give you a violation code that you're in violation of because you have a barking dog and somebody's complained about it. Here in Mexico, actually there's a barking dog in the far distance somewhere. It's all the time. I mean, it's in the middle of the night, it's in the middle of the day, it's somebody walking down the street and you get a couple of dogs that are barking and then a couple of more join in, a couple of more join in, and that's just the way that it goes here. See? I'm telling you, barking dogs all the time and loud music all the time. So calling law enforcement for noises is not going to get you anywhere. You just have to learn to adjust, get some earplugs, I don't know, turn your music up loud yourself, or just learn to live with it and go to sleep. And another thing where you're going to get loud noises in Mexico is with the fireworks. Here in San Luis Potosí, it's not as bad as it was in Cholula, Puebla, Mexico. It was really bad there. Barking dogs. I mean, it started like at 9 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. Why, you might ask? Who knows why? A celebration, a holiday of some sort. Who knows? It's just the way it is. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was nobody complains about the situation either. They just learn to live with it. I mean, there's really nobody to call anyhow. I mean, they don't go knock at their neighbors' doors or anything. They just learn to live with the loud noises, like barking dogs, for example. Another freedom in Mexico is with home improvements. And if you watch our videos, you know that Mark and I have done a lot of home improvements since we bought our house. Home improvements do not require a permit, good or bad. I don't know how you want to look at it. Could be good, could be bad. Here in Mexico, you can do just about anything without any kind of law enforcement coming down your throat. Nothing like that. Hold on, my throat's getting dry. This is coconut water. We pay 40 pesos, $2 for this. Maybe a little bit more, $2.25 with the peso. So yeah, Mark and I have had work done. No permits are required. Again, it can be good, it can be bad. If they do crappy work, you've really got nothing to stand on. And sure, people can give you a warranty for, 6 months or a year. Are they really going to stand behind it? That's the other thing. Yeah, you might get a written note saying that they'll give you the warranty, but standing behind it is a whole nother thing. And Mark and I have run into that also, standing behind what they tell you. Now I know when we were in the U.S., we've had a couple of things done. We had a roof replaced, and we did not get the permit, and then a neighbor complained, so we had to get the permit. And then a water heater, to exchange your water heater out, you had to get a permit for that. And then another thing that we did was we had a pergola installed by a contractor in our backyard area, and we had to get a permit for that. Now, what I did is I told the contractor I would take care of the permit. Now, nobody's going to know, right? It's in my backyard whether I do it or I don't. Well, I did it. I went down to the building office where you get your permits and you submit papers and stuff, and they approve it and charge you money. So I went down there, showed them the contract on how much it was going to cost me, and I had to pay for my permit. I got my permit. I don't remember how much that was. Got my permit, and then they decided to go ahead, and when my tax bill came around the following year, they reassessed it, and my taxes went up. Now this was from Sacramento area, so my taxes had gone up, and I'm like, what the hey? Why is that? So I went back to the building department to find out why, and they had valued the pergola that we had put in for more than what I paid the contractor, what I was being charged. And so I fought that one tooth and nail, and I believe they finally brought that down in price, because I'm like, how can you assess it for more when I showed you the contract from the contractor? That's what I was paying. So that finally got resolved. But in Mexico, you don't need anything like that. Like I said, you can pretty much do a lot of everything. You're not supposed to be allowed in like certain communities, like a community like where we're in. You're not supposed to be able to build like so many stories high, but I see it going on all the time with these condo apartments. So I don't know. And then they say that here you're not supposed to have a business out of your garage. But I see that too here in Mexico. You know, do they have a permit for that? I don't know. You know, the other thing is I see those street vendors out all the time now. I think they're supposed to have a permit. Whether they do, I don't know. You know, how often do they actually get stopped by the police in Mexico to find out if they have a permit? I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things. So I just wanted to tell you guys this, because if you're planning to retire or move to Mexico, just know that pretty much anything goes. I mean, as long as you're not like, you know, physically hurting somebody, you know, you can pretty much do whatever you want to do here in Mexico. Nobody's really going to give you a rash of crap for it at all. Even if they don't like it, even if they don't like your loud music or they don't like your barking dogs and you're not doing anything about it, they're not going to complain. They're not going to go to your home. Nothing like that is going to happen. But however, because there aren't really rules that are followed here in Mexico, and you can pretty much do whatever you want, you know, you need to also have some cautions out there yourself. Like a one-way street doesn't mean it's really a one-way street. It means that you should look both ways, because just because it's a one-way street, cars travel both ways on it, and if you're not paying attention, you could get hit real easy. You know, like I said, with the noises, you know, with dogs, there's also roosters, right? You got roosters that crow all the time. Nothing is going to happen about that either. But getting back to what I'm saying, you know, if you are planning on moving to Mexico, just know that, you know, with the lax rules or no rules really, there are consequences, you know, like cars passing you all the time, passing you on the left and passing you on the right. Mostly motorcycles pass you on the right and the left at the same time. But again, you know, just use caution, be aware of these things. That's all you need to do, just be aware of it. And one other thing that I wanted to mention is that the pace of life here in Mexico is pretty much non-stressful like it is in the US, you know, so that's another thing. I think that people are just kind of that laid back attitude where things don't bother them as much. So the thing is, you know, you just got to learn, if you're going to move to Mexico, not to get so uptight over that kind of stuff. And trust me, I'm a type A personality, so I know about getting uptight over stuff. But you got to learn to just relax a little bit more, not let it bother you, go with the flow of things here in Mexico. You know, all in all, it's way worth living here for us versus living in the United States. Sure, there's some, you know, differences like I was just explaining to you and other things, you know, with some paperwork, it's tedious and doesn't make any sense, and banking is crazy and things like that. But all in all, you know what? Your lifestyle here is such a better life, I think, than, you know, growing up living in the United States for the 60 years. I wouldn't change my life here for anything. And one other thing I wanted to mention why Mark isn't in the picture is that he had some spots on his face, and I told him to go see our friend Humberto, who is my adopted son here in Mexico, who's a dermatologist. He just became a dermatologist. Kudos to you, Humberto. Yay, 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 yay. Good for you. And Mark went to go see him because he had one mark that I didn't like on his face. So Humberto took care of that, but he also did a chemical peel on Mark's face for those spots that he had. Some people call them aging spots, sunspots, I don't know, spots. So he ended up having that done, and now his face is peeling and it's not real attractive. So that's why he's off camera today. But he'll be back next week to have more to say and add to the video. And because there's a car alarm, can you guys hear that? And a barking dog. That's another sound that you'll hear a lot in Mexico. Somebody's home alarm going off or somebody's car alarm going off. Happens all the time. From the two travelers in Mexico, as always,
What she did.
bye guys.